Olivia from 1978 stars Olivia Newton-John, Andy Gibb and ABBA. As I said last time, this show is one of my favorite moments of music television. So today we are diving into this fascinating TV special, but also into the time and place surrounding it so that we have more context. First of all, I want to thank each and every one of you for leaving so many beautiful and moving comments and memories on our memorial video for Olivia Newton-John. I want to highlight a few favorite songs that some of you mentioned. Carlos Garion singled out If Not For You, a song written by Bob Dylan and also beautifully recorded by George Harrison. Patrick Hicks praised her self-written song Changes from 1972, and Frankly 1974 mentioned another #1 single of hers, Sam from 1977. Boo12467 brought up The Promise, the Dolphin song, which is a beautiful and touching song, again written by Olivia herself for her 1980 album Physical. And Carla Torella remembers the album Soul Kiss from 1985. Of course, there was also praise for the 1980 fantasy musical and soundtrack Xanadu and the film and soundtrack Grease, which brings us to 1978. This was the year when Olivia invited Andy Gibb and ABBA for a show that brought all of them together for the ABC TV special simply titled Olivia. Olivia had already done a 1-hour TV special for ABC in 1976 and would be doing 2 more ABC shows in 1980 and 1982. On the 8th of May 1978, the artists arrived at the Columbia Studios in Hollywood, Los Angeles, California, to record a 50-minute program which consisted of many different segments. We had solo numbers from Olivia, sketches and set pieces, and the heart and soul of the show, a 15 minutes live concert in front of an audience, as well as a 10 minutes jam session. If the latter seems somewhat familiar to some of you, well, 10 years earlier, Elvis Presley had a similar sit-down session on his comeback special, which was also simply titled after him. And all of this is no coincidence. The director of Elvis was Steve Binder, and he also directed Olivia. Now, before we dissect our very own TV special with Olivia, Andy Gibb and ABBA, let's take a look at where all of them were at this specific point in their careers. Olivia Newton-John had released no less than 9 studio albums by that point, starting in 1971. She had released 1 album every year, sometimes even 2, and was largely focusing on country pop style during this era. Andy Gibb had released his wonderful debut album Flowing Rivers in September 1977 with 2 #1 singles in the US. And ABBA had released their first 5 albums as well as their first and only feature film, which had been released in Australia and many European countries by that time, but wouldn't be released in the United States until February 1979. Now, Olivia and ABBA had actually kind of met before, when they both participated in the Eurovision Song Contest 1974. ABBA won, and this really kicked off their international career. But to be really big in the US wasn't too easy. They did visit almost every year for promotional trips and TV performances. It wasn't enough, so in 1978 they went to the US again, and this time with the biggest marketing campaign yet, declaring May 1978 as ABBA Month. The Olivia TV show was the centerpiece. Now let's get even closer to that TV special and have a look at April 1978, the month before Olivia. Because, coincidence or not, all 3 artists had their latest releases in April that year. Olivia's most recent release was the soundtrack for Grease. It would become one of the best-selling albums and soundtracks of all time. The film would be released in June, 1 month after the Olivia TV special, and at that time would become the highest-grossing musical film ever made. Also in April, Andy Gibb released his newest single, Shadow Dancing, which went to #1 in the US. The album by the same name was also released 1 month after the special in June 1978. And ABBA had released their most recent single, Take a Chance on Me, in April 1978 in the US. So they were all ready, in top form, and it would culminate in Olivia's TV special, Olivia. The show opened with a hauntingly beautiful solo performance from Olivia, Grow Young. This song was exclusively written for the show by Jimmy Webb, who also was the music producer for this segment. It was then followed by a Cat Stevens song, Remember the Days of the Old Schoolyard. We continued to see and hear Olivia, then Andy Gibb, and finally ABBA, all being introduced one after the other to finally come together and having a first talk after the song. They were talking about school memories from their childhood.
Do you remember back when you were in the schoolyard?
No.
Too long ago, I'll tell you that.
That's quite an interesting theme, considering that Grease was also a nostalgic trip down memory lane into high school experiences. In fact, the TV special does seem to have a loose childhood theme or themes of evolution. We'll talk more about that later. The next segment in the show, after the first commercial, was an entire 15 minutes live concert part. The set design is gorgeous, capturing those carefree, sunny Californian vibes that are also reflected in the music and arrangements. They perform 11 songs back to back, live and with no interruption, all of them seamlessly flowing into the other. They sing songs together and also solo from their individual repertory, backed by the others on backing vocals. It's a marvelous performance. You can really feel the energy throughout, and then coming to a climax towards the end when all 6 artists come together again for the reprise of the first song. That first song, the opening of this segment, is If You Love Me, Let Me Know. This song was a single from Olivia, recorded in 1974 for a compilation album by the same name. But it was also recorded by Elvis, included on his amazing final album Moody Blue in 1977. There is another Elvis connection later in the show, and his presence and music was also part of Grease, which is set in the 1950s. Keep in mind, Elvis had passed away not too long before Olivia's TV show in August 1977. Olivia, Andy Gibb and ABBA sing this first song together, and then it's ABBA's turn with the Dancing Queen and Fernando. It's wonderful to go through some of the comments and feedback from today of people watching this show. The user MT wrote, "The way Olivia joins ABBA on Fernando during the chorus is absolutely beautiful." The next solo spot goes to Andy Gibb. So you see how meticulously and respectfully Olivia gives these first spots to her guest stars. Andy Gibb performs I Just Want to Be Your Everything, which was one of the #1 singles from his debut album. The harmonies on this live performance from ABBA and Olivia are marvelous. Liu Kim Video wrote, "Look how ABBA just completely mesh into the non-ABBA songs. This is talent that's never been repeated in pop music." The same goes for the next 2 tracks, when Olivia steps forward with 2 singles from her 5th album, Have You Never Been Mellow, which were both #1 hits in the US, the title track and Please Mr. Please. After that, we return to ABBA with their latest single, Take a Chance on Me, then to Andy Gibb with a snippet of his other #1 hit from Flowing Rivers, Thicker Than Water, before finally kicking off with his most recent single, Shadow Dancing. The live band is tight and spot on. They sound amazing. We have a marvelous orchestra and superb backing vocalists. And then we go immediately into Olivia's brand new song, Hopelessly Devoted to You, from the Grease soundtrack and a standout moment in the film. So we can see how marvelous this setlist and sequence of songs actually is. For the first half of this concert, they start with some of their older hits from the past, one after the other. ABBA, Andy Gibb, Olivia. And in that same sequence, the second half is filled with their most recent songs. So old and new are in contrast. We literally witness that theme of evolution just in the setlist alone. One review of the show said, "I really love the story of the show, the live timeline. The way the songs are sequenced, the way they are modulated and chained is stunning and reflects amazingly the various ages narrated." At the end of this concert segment, we can almost feel that circle of life when we return to the opening song with a reprise of If You Love Me, Let Me Know, and come full circle. Matt Somadakis wrote, This is quite possibly the greatest 20 minutes in pop music history. What else can I add to this? The concert segment was quickly followed by the next commercial, of course, after a 15 minutes non-stop airplay.
What's next, a commercial? Yes, then we'll have a commercial. Love it, love it.
It is hard to match the quality and energy of this whole opening of the show, so the next part in the show is bound to lose some impact, and is possibly, for me at least, the less interesting section of the special. It's still worth to watch. We return with a board game sequence in which Olivia delivers some of her astonishing dance movements in tight costumes, and ABBA mime to a snippet of Money, Money, Money. This part of the show was described in a press release as an elaborately staged segment called The Game, in which Olivia goes on a growing up odyssey, attending high school, achieving financial success, finding romance, raising children, breaking up, and finding hope again within my heart. This article also mentions that there would be a snippet from the new film Grease. Now, in all the copies I have seen of the show, there is no clip from Grease, so if anyone saw this program when it was actually broadcast back in the day, do you remember a clip from the film Grease being shown as part of Olivia? This article was written while production for the special was still ongoing, so perhaps they scrapped that idea, but it does make me think it is a bit odd that they didn't really do any promotion for her upcoming film on the show. Another part of this sequence is a short spoken word sketch with Olivia and a guest appearance by actor Gary Frank. He mainly played in TV series and at that time starred in the American TV series Family. On the Olivia special, he plays her ex-husband, and this segment has quite a serious tone, dealing with shared custody. So again, we are back to a childhood theme. Now, throughout the special, there are some other moments with children who reenact Olivia, Andy Gibb and ABBA. Now you could criticize this and say that the special is flawed by the use of annoying children who grate on your nerves, as someone wrote in a review of the show. For me, it is not the most entertaining portion of the show, and is certainly not what you would expect when you tuned in to see your favorite musicians in a program that otherwise has so much perfection and quality. Why the children's acting is so clumsy can possibly be explained with an idea from another review. They appear to have been directed to be deliberately amateurish, similar to an actual school play. The reviewer also admits that it really doesn't work well. I don't think I would miss those scenes much, but I say this with all my respect to the children who participated in this. In fact, they are damn lucky to be part of TV history. Here's a photo of the girl who played Frida, so we could almost envy them. And again, there's not too much of these scenes, so it can be overlooked. The next highlight in the show is that gospel duet between Olivia, James Cleveland, and the Southern California Choir.
In my heart, 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 get back to life, and do it now, one more time.
And then we are into the big finale, without a doubt the second highlight of the show, the so-called jam session, where they talk to each other and perform 6 songs, starting with 2 tracks from Benny's heroes, the Beach Boys. Frida demonstrates her astonishing opera voice with an operatic piece, and Andy Gibb delivers a haunting, beautiful version of the Bee Gees' Holiday.
Ooh, you're a holiday, and I say you're a holiday.
Oh, that's one of my favorites.
And Olivia goes into another tribute to Elvis with J-Lo's Rock, before coming to a close with a song from the great American songbook, What'll I Do, written by Irving Berlin.
What'll I do when you are far away and I am blue? What'll I do? What'll I do?
So even this sequence and selection of songs for the jam session is so encompassing and personal. Our friend and supporter Marike Andresen said this: "I absolutely love the jam session ABBA did together with Olivia and Andy Gibb. 6 of the all-time greats in a room together, letting loose and having so much mutual respect for each other's musicality. And they seemed so relaxed and happy in each other's company too. You really get the feeling like you're seeing a friendship blossoming between them in real time." And I think this jam session really captures the atmosphere of the entire special as good as it can get. That personal, respectful and natural vibe, the mutual love and appreciation. I can't stress enough how much I adore this historical show and how much of that goes back to the host, Olivia Newton-John. This special is simply called Olivia, and I think it's for that exact reason, because it captures her spirit of respect and true kindness. The program ends with her rendition of the Billy Joel song Just the Way You Are from 1977, as well as Olivia's performance of Who Are You Now? And all 6 come together at the end to perform ABBA's Thank You for the Music. Benny said this about the show: "It was one of the best shows we have ever done. Olivia was a very lovely, warm person, and we all had a lot of fun doing the program. Of course, we've done the usual quota of TV talk shows in America, but this one with Olivia was an important step for us. Besides presenting our music for large audiences of 30 or 40 million viewers, we all sat down for a 10-minute rap session, which gave the whole thing more intimacy." The show was broadcast on the 17th of May 1978, which is just 9 days after it was recorded. It's a marvelous effort by everyone involved, including the editors of the show. One of them said this: "The ABC TV special Olivia was the marathon of all television specials I edited while in Hollywood. For 36 non-stop hours, director Steve Binder, my all-time favorite, and the post-production crew dashed toward an unbelievable deadline and beat it." In 2011, the concert segment surfaced as full-length version in true stereo on the editor's YouTube channel Argo Who. This version has the entirety of the opening song If You Love Me Let Me Know and the final song without end credits. An alternate first take of this concert shows that they performed the entire concert twice and that they absolutely nailed it the second time around. True professionals, the artists as well as the live band, orchestra and the sound and film crew. The upload by Argo Who has over 7 million views by now, which is mind-blowing. People are obviously crazy about this. They love it, they want it. That makes me wonder even more why it was never released on Blu-ray or DVD. At least in 1980, the show was released by MCA Discovision on Laserdisc. They were actually the first company to release Laserdiscs in the US and did release several TV specials around that time. Gladly, this was one of them. But the legacy of the show is more than that. It brought together 6 of the greatest artists in pop music at the time and in music history. And it would bring them together again and again long after the special was shown. When Grease was released in June 1978, Andy Gibb was one of the guests attending the world premiere. In January 1979, all 6 artists would come together again for the UNICEF benefit concert in New York City. Olivia Newton-John and Andy Gibb actually performed a song together. In 1980, they recorded this track in the studio along with a second duet for Andy Gibb's third and final album. He passed away in 1988 at the age of 30. Olivia Newton-John would go on to explore new genres and themes that were very close to her heart. Themes of environment and animal rights colored her music, and she would compose more and more songs on her own, even entire albums, that also dealt with strength and perseverance after her first experience and battle with breast cancer. She would also develop a friendship with Frida, and we saw the two of them together several times over the years. In November 2016, Frida visited Olivia's Summer Night concert residency in Las Vegas. 5 years later, in November last year, ABBA released their most recent album, Voyage. For Frida's birthday, Olivia tweeted a greeting, writing that she is so proud of her, certainly referring to Frida's return in music with ABBA and Voyage. Such a beautiful gesture. This week, Olivia passed away at the age of 73. Agneta and Frida wrote two beautiful messages. Agneta sent a white dove and said this: "So sad to hear of Olivia's passing. A fine person has left us, and there are many of us who mourn her now. My thoughts go out to the family, and her music and personality will always remain in memory." Frida wrote this: "What do you feel, what do you say when the nicest, kindest and most loving woman leaves us to travel somewhere else? The heart aches to know Olivia's brave fight against an, in her case, invincible enemy. That she never gave up or complained about her situation, but instead told us her story so that we would understand and want to help others affected. I am grateful to have known a person like you, Olivia, and you will always be in my heart. With love, your friend Frida." We are left with all these photographs, memories, and this most amazing TV special that seems to get more and more important: music history preserved on film. It captures the zeitgeist of several periods, and with that also is a symbol for life and all the ways it offers. Love and friendship, the evolution of relationships, it's all in there. And above all, it was the foundation for actual friendships. It solidified bonds amongst the artists, and it certainly cemented our love for them. Let me know what you think of the Olivia TV show, and feel free to share all your other thoughts, favorite songs and memories. I hope you enjoyed this video. Alright, until then, hey do!
Here's a little vessel I learned at rehearsal. I just want you to know that it's the end of the show. Thank you, everybody.